Hey, this is Drew from Perfect Search, and we are about to start the social advertising training. Get excited, people. The main thing to think about here is hopefully you've done your search training, and social is the counterpart of that. There are some differences and similarities that are interesting to go over, and we're going to take you through that to begin with. Search, you have your typical very granular targeting setup where you might have hundreds to thousands of keywords that you've entered in and set up across many different ad groups and campaigns. The audience targeting can get very granular as you're building that out, and you're typically going after users based on their search intent. So you're targeting users that search something specifically, and you're only showing ads when users search the keywords that you've put in. On social, on the other hand, you're typically going after already created interest bucket audiences and demographics. So the setup's a little bit more broad and less granular than search. You can usually create your audiences a lot faster and easier. But yeah, so you'll be layering on different interests and behavior targeting buckets that are already created by Facebook. And then you'll be showing ads to users based on those layers. Social can also be good, for example, here because you are able to, say you have a business with a new product that people don't know they need or don't know they could benefit from. Um, if that's the case, they're not going to be able to search for it. So Facebook would be a great platform to get more eyeballs on this and explain your product to users that aren't searching for it. And so that would be a really great case to use social. But there are also other great benefits to it, such as you'll typically find lower CPCs. In addition to that, a little bit easier audience setup, and you'll be able to explain your products through visuals a lot better than you typically would with search. So moving on, you have your Facebook business page at the top, and that's like the very high end control organic posts, page information, your Facebook pixel, and all your different assets underneath it, including your ad accounts. So under your business page, you have your ad accounts, and then within there is where you'll be doing most of your work, is within the ad count, you have your campaigns, ad groups, and ads. If you move on to slide number 6, you'll be able to see this structure. So very similar to Google here or Microsoft, you have that campaign, breaks down into ad sets, breaks down into ads. And at the ad set level is where you input your audiences, and then the ad is where you input the creative. Pretty easy to absorb there if you've already gone through search. You have some more differences as you look more in depth into each of those. At the campaign level, you're going to select an objective, and there are a number of options there. We usually put like 95% of our campaigns, we're going to focus on optimized for conversions or product catalog sales, because this basically is telling Facebook we want to go after the user that is the cheapest and most likely to convert on our site. And that's a lot different from saying we want the cheapest user to click on our ads or like them. And that's a very important distinguishment between the two, because there are plenty of users that love to click on ads on Facebook and like and comment, but don't actually often buy or sign up on websites. And so you want to make sure that you filter out for that by typically putting more of your budget into that optimize for conversions or product catalog sales campaign. Basically, we have more important metrics to go after and measure success, such as conversions. than impressions and clicks. And so that's typically what you're going to want to do. That being said, if you wanted to build in very broad, big picture marketing strategy, you might create a campaign or two focused on brand awareness, reach, traffic, engagement, or video views. And typically with those, you'll see a lot cheaper cost per view, cost per click, cost per user reached. And that can be important if that's your objective is mostly just to drive awareness. But typically we'll be going after and measuring success based on purchases or lead signups. And so you'll usually want to optimize for conversions. Now, as you break down into ad sets, this is where you choose your targeting. And on top of that campaign objective, you're also going to set more specific ad set objectives. So say you chose my campaign is optimized for conversions. Now within each ad set, you're going to choose which conversion you want to optimize for and target delivery based on. And that's really important. The better tracking you have set up with the pixel, the significantly better return on ad spend you're going to get with your targeting and the better results you're going to see. So after you set that up, the other items that you'll be setting up are placements. So if you want to just go after all the Facebook and Instagram placements, you usually just set things on auto, and that setting is actually recommended by Facebook. So that's usually the easiest and the best way to set things up. But sometimes you'll actually, based on either a client's preference or maybe the creative that you have, you might want to just focus on Facebook or Instagram specifically if maybe you're seeing very different results between one than the other and Facebook's not able to automatically place budget in the right places, then you might want a more manual control. And at the ad set level, you're able to exclude placements if you don't want to go after them. You're also going to choose your audience here. So different demographics, interests, and behaviors. We'll go after that more in a second and break that down. But you're also going to be able to set budget here, as well as ad schedule. Now, as you break out into audiences a bit more, you'll have a large number of options here. You can set the locations. So often you'll just set most of the US, but if you have a company that maybe doesn't ship to Alaska or Hawaii, that might be different. If you have a tighter budget and you realize that urban users are more receptive to your product, you might just choose a handful of big cities. There are a number of reasons why you might change those location settings, and at the ad set is where you do that. You also get to play around and adjust the age, gender, or particularly if you are going after international users, you'll typically want to make sure that the language is set to English so that you're not showing an English ad to a German user. And gender and age are also can be underlooked at times, but are really important to a strong marketing strategy. Typically, you want to show, so if you're going to show a person in your ad, a male, a young, say a young 20-year-old male user is going to respond to an ad that shows a young 20-ish-year-old male user in it. You typically want to be really careful about who you're targeting and what kind of person you're showing, because that's going to greatly impact the click-through rate and performance of those ads. So here's where you might break things down a bit more and create a number of different ad sets to tailor that. The other options you have are custom audiences. So you can add in retargeting past 7 days visitors, past 7 to 14 days visitors, email lists, as well as lookalike audiences. Lookalike audiences can be a really strong and easy way to go after new users that are in market for your product. But the one necessary thing that you'll need is you'll have to show Facebook an audience of users that have purchased or converted in the past. The larger that audience is, the better. And then based off of that, Facebook will be able to create an audience that looks like that, but is totally new users. And then once that's created very quickly and easily, you can add that into your ad set and go after those users. Some of the other options you have are going after connections of pages. So one example of that is going after friends of users who like your page. If you've ever seen an ad on your Facebook newsfeed that say like your friend Nabil likes this page as well as 34 others, that is an example of that kind of ad targeting. And with all of these different interest bucket audiences and demographics and location information, you're able to overlay it all together. And you start out with these broad bucket audience interests, but as you put them all together, you will get one audience that is more granular than you started out with. You might be wondering, how does Facebook create these interest bucket audiences? And the way they're able to figure out who is interested in running, or better yet, running shoes, and so on, is basically Facebook's able to gather information on what people share on their timelines, whether that's in text content, images, or videos, the apps they use, the ads they click on, the pages they engage with, as well as their own demographic information and location, as well as a number of other features that the typical user wouldn't know what to do with, such as what mobile device does a user use and the speed of their network connection. It's able to take in a large wealth of information like that and come up with some pretty fine-tuned bucket audiences based on that are typically aligned with what they are meant to do. As we go on to the next slide, I can elaborate a little bit more on some of those bucket audiences. So within demographics, we not only have age and gender and location, but you can also look at the degree of education a user has received and target that specifically. You can look at users' job title entered in on Facebook, their likely household income and lifestyle information, as well as relationship status. They'll even go so far as to have bucket audiences for friends of users who just got engaged or just got married. There's a lot you can do within the demographics, even more than in Google. And then you have your interests and behaviors. And interests are, whether a user is interested in a certain activity or type of page. Behavior is a little bit more based on the information that Facebook is getting from the pixels. And you're able to actually look at users that are more likely to purchase on Facebook or purchase a certain type of item. And those will be even more valuable than interests to go after, but usually you can get strong performance from both. And now, as you move on, this next slide, detailed targeting options, you'll be able to see a screenshot of what it looks like to be in the Facebook ad platform and looking and creating an ad set. And of note, on the right, you'll see a few little handy metrics that Facebook's able to create. So at the top right, you see audience size, and you basically want to create an audience that is not too specific, that it's tiny, and your CPCs are going to cost a lot because there's only a small number of users and they're heavily competitive and not often on. But you also don't want to create an audience that's too broad that they're not actually interested in your business or product. You want to get something very in between. And so you have that little uh, meter that will tell you where you are there, and typically you want to be in that green. It'll also tell you the potential reach of your ad set. So this basically just tells you a raw number on how many people are in it and targetable. And then it'll give you an estimated daily results in reach and conversions based on your budget and the audience size. Now, as you look at the bottom center of this screenshot, you'll also see how you add like an interest or behavior bucket. Um, Typically, you can just type in, say you want to go after someone that's going to get married soon, and you typed in wedding, you'll be able to see all these different options that you could tack on um, depending on what you want to go after. In terms of placements, you will see if you start a Facebook campaign and put it on auto placements that most of your spend and reach and impressions will be on the Facebook feed, particularly the mobile feed, and then second most on the Instagram feed. But you also do have these other placements that you will often see your ads show on too at a much lower rate, such as instant articles on mobile, in-stream videos, right column on desktop, as well as stories. And typically with these different placements, you want to look at performance by each of them. And typically if you put things on auto, Facebook will optimize things pretty well, but you'll always want to take a second look at things just in case, because that might not always be the case, and then you can adjust things from there. The other option you have with placements is Messenger and Audience Network. We typically don't recommend using Audience Network. It's another way to expand your reach with users by targeting users on mobile apps and other websites. But typically we see pretty poor performance there, and so we do not recommend it. That brings us to ads, the actual creative. And with Facebook, even more so than search, I would say, the creative is really, really, really important. Particularly the image or the video portion of the ad. Typically when users are scrolling down on their newsfeed, eye tracking studies have shown their eyes first go to the image or video, and if they are still interested after that, if they are, then they'll move their eyes to the title of the ad just below the image or video, and then up to the primary text or description that is listed right above the image or video. And so that just goes to show that the image and video is really important, given that it's the first thing a user sees, and whether they continue to read more about your ad depends on that. And so you want to make sure you're giving a lot of time and attention to that design element of it. And then obviously the ad copy is important as well, with the title being the next most important part and the primary text after that. Facebook does have some pretty rigid standards on how much text you can fit in that description or title. Typically, you only fit about 3 lines of text on mobile. And so you want to create your ads usually based off of how they appear on the mobile Facebook feed, since it's the most reduced small version of that ad. If you create an ad that looks good on the mobile feed, typically it'll look good on desktop, is the thought process there. And so that's something to always consider. But you will also see a somewhat different type of ad on Instagram as well, which we'll talk about more in a minute. But first, as you're still looking at the screen of Facebook ads and you see the 4 different creative elements here, you'll want to take note of the different formats you're seeing. On the very left, you see a typical desktop newsfeed ad, and on the bottom middle, you'll see a mobile carousel ad. You can get these on desktop too, but this is just the mobile version. And as you can see there, you can have multiple, like 3 to 5 or 6 cards there, each its own image and title and mini description underneath. And then top middle, you have that right column ad on desktop, and then top right, your mobile news feed ad. This is an example of the targeting friends of users who like your page type of ad. Moving on to Facebook ad specs. I mentioned a few of these formats a second ago, but there are a large number of different types of ads you can test out here. And we typically recommend trying as many as you can and creating ad sets that feature many different types in here, because they all kind of have their own advantages. There's no like best ad unless you're getting really specific with like a certain case. So typically, you might see a higher click-through rate on single image ads because they're straight and to the point, and you might see lower CPCs and maybe a higher conversion rate. But then you have your video ads, which have their own benefits as well, where you're able to show more about the product and increase brand awareness in a significant way that you can't with image ads. And that goes for the same with Carousel, as well as Slideshow, Instant Experience, and Canvas. They all have their own strengths, and typically we've seen an ad set that has multiple of those different format ads will perform best. So Facebook can deliver both to a user and maybe increase their awareness first with a video and then show them a single image ad, and you'll see your performance a lot more effective with that. With the image ads, you are able to show like a rectangle formatted image of like a 1200 by 628, but square format is the preferred version of showing ads, and you want to put on little to no overlaid text over that image. Facebook will actually reduce the delivery of your ads if you have more than 20% of the image covered with text. If you have text you want to get across in the design, we typically recommend setting that up in a video where maybe the first still image of the video doesn't have any text, but then as he goes on, there's more. That's typically a solid way to bypass the under 20% text rule with Facebook Creative. The other items I want to call out is just to get terminology down. You have your headline for each ad. That's basically the title. And this, as a call out, this won't appear on all placements. Instagram's a solid call out here. They typically only show the primary description. And so this is something to think about when you're publishing ads, especially if they're getting a lot of delivery on Instagram, is looking at that Instagram placement in addition to the mobile newsfeed placement to make sure that it still looks good in that format. And then the primary text area is where you can fit more text in to explain your product or what you're promoting. Then you have your choice of call to action button. I think there's like 15 to 20 different options of download now, buy now, shop now, learn more, etc. that you can choose from. And this is another area worth testing to, depending on what you're advertising, to see if you can improve performance there. The last element is at the bottom and in the smallest print of each ad is the newsfeed link description, and that appears just under the headline. It's typically one line of information, maybe about 8 words will fit in there, where you can put in a small call out. And then also, you'll see the associated Facebook page tied in with each ad, that Facebook page name and that brand image. The last call out here that I want to mention is with each Facebook ad, there's no auto tagging like there is in Google. You'll need to add in UTM parameters to the end of each ad URL. And this way, you'll be able to put in information such as what campaign this ad belongs to, what ad set, and what channel this happened on, so Facebook, PPC. And this way, once you get all that information in the URLs, you'll be able to look into Google Analytics or the CMS for the client, and you'll be able to see when a user purchases, if they clicked on a Facebook or Instagram ad, it'll show up that they clicked on that first before they purchased. And this is really important for attribution. If you don't set those UTM parameters up, then a client might see purchases come in and not correctly attribute them to our Facebook advertising. And the same might happen for us if we're looking in Google Analytics. So very, very, very important to set that up so you can check that out. Now we'll move on to Instagram ads. As I mentioned before, you can see here there's no title. There's just the Instagram page name and then the description right after. So always important to consider, does my ad make sense even without the title? The other things to think about are, Instagram ads are going to be mobile only. The platform is a bit different than Facebook, and the user might be as well, based on the difference in users on Instagram and Facebook. You also might see CPC that's higher than on Facebook. I've typically seen that within my accounts. So just all little things to consider. Now to review best practices, since we went through things pretty granularly, I want to make sure that the most important things do stick with you. And so always consider and make sure that the objective is set correctly, likely to optimize for conversions, and at the ad set level, make sure that it's optimized for the right conversion that you actually care about. Secondly, make sure you have little to no text on images. Third, CTR is king. Creative is really important. The stronger your image or video is, along with its associated ad copy, the higher click-through rate you'll see and the significantly lower cost per click that you'll see. I've seen CPCs in some extraordinary cases as low as 5 cents per click, even 2 cents. So depending on your objective and really how strong your creative is, you are able to get some really, really cheap traffic on Facebook. You just need to focus on and think about that creative. Fourthly, find your audience. There is, a little bit less work to be done here than compared to Google search, but there are many different demographic options, as well as interest buckets, audiences to test out. And so really getting creative and creating a number of tests there is going to help improve performance and get you set up from the get-go. Second to last, make sure you're testing out a large number of different ad types, ad copy, and creative to optimize performance there. And then lastly, lead gen ads are an option as well. I believe this is the first time I'm mentioning them, but you are able to set up ads that collect email addresses or names in Facebook right within the platform. And if that's what your business is going after, that type of ad format can be a good way to get those. Now we move on to metrics and reporting. We have a few key metrics here to think about that differ a bit more from what you're used to on Google search or Microsoft search. And reach is something to consider. So this is how many unique users saw your ad. So that's going to be a bit different than impressions. Impressions is how many times your ad showed, and reach is how many different users your ad showed to. So say you had 300 impressions with a reach of 100. That would mean 100 users saw your ad on average about 3 times. And that's where you get your frequency metric. It's just impressions divided by reach. Now, frequency could change for any specific user. It's very possible to have a frequency of 3, meaning the average user saw your ad 3 times, but it's possible to have a user that actually saw your ad 6 times, or one user that saw your ad once. So all things to consider, especially if a client ever asks about that. Then you have your clicks versus link clicks differentiation. Now, you're going to be charged for both on Facebook. So if a user clicks on your ad and they click to your Facebook page instead of your website, or if they click to comment or click to like or engage with your ads or share it, um, it's going to count as a general click and you're going to pay for it. Link clicks are what you really want to look at when you're looking at performance is you want to look at link click-through rate, link clicks, how many users clicked on the ad and actually went to the website, and you want to look at conversions divided by link clicks to look at what your actual conversion rate is. Link clicks are going to be a bit lower of a metric than clicks, but they're more important in telling. Then you have your engagement metrics to look at. These are less important than, say looking at purchases or leads, the most important conversions you'll be looking at, and even link clicks. But say you don't have those sources of data, engagement's another way to paint a positive picture of your ads, or to just tell how users are responding to your ad early on. If you're getting a lot of likes, page likes, reactions, or shares, that's usually a good sign. So always something to consider, especially when you don't have a lot of conversion data and you're trying to paint that story. And then the last main distinction I want to discuss is the Facebook conversion attribution. They typically, when you're looking at conversions within Facebook, you're able to look at users who clicked on the ad and converted, and also users who viewed the ad, did not click, but did convert later on. And this is an important differentiation here. Typically, the default Facebook attribution window is 28-day click or 1-day view. So if a user converted and they clicked on your ad within the last 28 days, then Facebook's going to say that, this ad led to that conversion. Alternatively, if a user saw your ad on Facebook but never clicked on it, and then within that same 24-hour span they converted, Facebook's going to tell you that our ad led to that conversion. So if a user does one or the other, we're going to see Facebook attribute that conversion to our advertising. You can change those settings if you'd like. Some clients will have, specific preferences there. I've seen some clients not trust the view conversion settings, or they want a smaller time period for the click conversions. So that's something you can change and play around with if you'd like. We typically recommend just keeping the default settings unless a client asks, though. And it's also important to remember that when you go into Google Analytics or a client's CMS, you might not see as many conversions attributed to Facebook there as you do when you're looking in the Facebook ads platform. And that's mostly because of those view conversions that you're seeing in the Facebook ads platform. Only Facebook's really able to collect that data. You're not going to be able to collect who viewed an ad but didn't click and converted just by looking in Google Analytics or your CMS. And so if you see a large difference in your conversion data between one of those platforms and Facebook, this is likely why. And it's something you're going to want to look at regularly and have a grasp on. Because if most of your conversions are coming in through view, it's a lot less trustworthy data than if most of your conversions were coming in through users who clicked on your ads. Not to say there's not value there, I've definitely viewed an ad before, not clicked on it and purchased because that ad, it's just a hard line to walk and something to always consider. Now, one very last reminder is that while we've mostly just discussed Facebook and Instagram here, there are a number of other social media ad platforms to test out that work very, very similarly, much more similar to Facebook and Instagram than search. And those include Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Pinterest, Reddit, Quora, and many, many more. And we typically focus on Facebook and Instagram because uh, they are they typically lead to much stronger results than these other platforms. There are so many users on at all times that you're able to get a lot lower CPCs than you would, say, LinkedIn. Um, and they also have a very, very built out ads platform and algorithmic targeting that works super well. And so this is typically where we start, but depending on the client's business and how much they're interested in testing new things, um, you might want to test out one of those other platforms as well. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope this is fun. And I wish you the best of luck on the rest of your education.